Let's turn from there for someone else who's always in controversy. Look, over the next 12 months, the news won't happen just here in India. It'll happen, well, in good old United States of America. The US President Donald Trump gives you a headline a day. Every day he's issuing executive orders, making dramatic announcements. Simply put, he has the world on tenterhooks. So what are we going to do here on the news today? We are going to start what we are calling the Trump tracker. Every day we are going to track what the US president is up to and what it means for people in this country. Now Trump has acted on a threat and slapped a 25% tariff on steel and aluminium imports. This, remember, could affect India. He's also paused the enforcement of a law banning bribery in foreign land. This move affects American companies and citizens for now, but it could also bring relief to the likes of Gautam Adani, the business magnate who was indicted, remember, in an American court not too long ago. Trump has also threatened to stop all aid to Jordan and Egypt if they don't take in Gazans. He further claimed today that Gazans won't have the right to return once the US takes over the land under a peace plan. And lastly, this one is interesting. He's just signed an executive order bringing back plastic straws. He just justified his decision, saying paper straws explode. Now, all of this is coming on the back of Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be meeting President Trump on Thursday, and the issue of tariffs will be top of the agenda. Let me go to Managing Editor Business today, Siddharth Zarabi, to understand all that's happening, because Siddharth, the Sensex has already crashed over 1,000 points with Trump's tariff threats. Is that fall linked to this uncertainty being created by these tariff diktats of the US president?
Absolutely, Rajdeep. In fact, this is the fifth straight session of fall in the Indian markets, and very clearly the fear of a global trade war beginning in earnest is what is driving negative market sentiment. The latest instance of the threat of tariffs, which are supposed to come into effect from the 4th of March, is not directly impacting Indian steel or metal producers. Because exports from India to the US in that category are perhaps less than 100,000 tons every year. The real issue is dumping of steel and allied products into the Indian market. Because when there is capacity in different countries which are hit by higher tariffs, for example China, the fear is, are those products going to end up in India? And that seems to be driving the market reaction at this point of time, because the markets don't know how far this will go, what will be the reciprocal actions. Already various other countries, China, the European Union, are saying that we will also go down this path. So a global trade war is feeding into fears even on the Indian stock markets.
But is there a fear that there is more to come? Or is there a hope that the Trump-Modi meeting this Thursday might address some of India's concerns?
Rajdeep, despite President Trump having spoken about India's so-called high tariffs in the past, in the recent few weeks, we haven't seen any specific action that targets India directly. Having said that, it's very clear that as far as India is concerned, certain preemptive measures have already been taken, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi's meeting with President Trump by itself, perhaps amongst the only few global leaders, only a couple ahead of him have met President Trump so far. This is going to be very, very crucial. The recent budget has already streamlined import duties further. Some of the announcements will benefit companies like Tesla, Harley Davidson, or even Apple. There is a review of almost 30 other items that is being looked at. And as far as India's key ask or offer on the table will be to pick up the strands from Donald Trump won when he was the president earlier, when India and US had done a lot of work on a limited trade deal. Hopefully, the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Donald Trump should see a revival of that, and a limited trade deal would go a long way in ensuring that India does not face adverse fallout on account of his tariff actions in the rest of the world.
Okay, Siddharth Zarabi giving us a sense of what it means, what Donald Trump's potential tariff war means for India. Appreciate you joining us. I'm joined by Atul Kashyap now. He's President, US-India Business Council. Appreciate you joining us. Mr. Kashyap, give us a sense. Do you share Siddharth's hope that the Trump-Modi meet might address some of these crucial concerns that are being raised? Every time Donald Trump puts out a tariff threat, the markets get spooked.
So, Rajdeep, first of all, I think that it's very important that Prime Minister Modi is among the very first leaders to visit President Trump in Washington in the very early days of his second administration. That is not an accident or a coincidence. I think it is a reflection of how important India is and how much regard there is between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi. So on that basis and that basis alone, a very great deal can be achieved. And what my organization, the US-India Business Council, has persistently called for is ambition between both governments and both leaders in order to break through some of the plateau that has been experienced by US-India trade and to take us to the next level. At the end of the day, we're two of the most dynamic and robust societies on earth. Our economic growth is much better than our other competitors and peers. And so we ought to double that. We ought to unleash the animal spirits of both of our free nations. And I think that both leaders can do that if they work seriously on some of the issues of concern on both sides. And this is where friends meet, they talk. I'm a diplomat. Talking's what we do, but the talking should be toward a noble purpose. And if that means that we can achieve a limited trade deal that unleashes the capabilities of both of our societies and helps us ensure our stability and security, then both leaders will have done a great service to America, India, and the world.
But with due regard, we've been hearing of this limited trade deal even in Trump's first presidency. Didn't happen. Do you believe things will be different? If anything, Mr. Trump this time seems more inclined to get tough with the world and possibly India as well.
Well, diplomacy is based on reciprocity. And what the president and his advisors are talking about is reciprocity in terms of their tariff treatments. And if you look at the situation in India, you know, U.S. companies and the U.S. government have for a long time felt that India's tariffs and non-tariff barriers are some of the highest in the world. And they make it very hard to increase the volume of trade and prosperity for both of our countries. So this is where, you know, friends have to understand where we're coming from. They have to understand our perspective, and then we can work as friends to try to address these issues. I think that if India actually reduces some of its tariffs and non-tariff barriers, it'll actually help Indian companies become more globally competitive. It'll drive more FDI into India. It'll create more jobs. It'll be good for both of us. And so I think President Trump has a point. You know, we ought to talk about reciprocal treatment.
So you're looking for a win-win. A report by Nomura says India is considering reducing tariffs on more than 30 items, increasing its purchases of U.S. defense and energy products. There will be those out here in this country who would say that India is bending backwards to appease the United States, that we are sort of almost spooked by Trump and therefore are ready to do whatever he wants.
Well, that's a political spin, and I don't agree with that. I think that the U.S. and India, as the two greatest free countries on earth, ought to be looking always at win-win outcomes for both of our people. And I think that's the perspective from Washington, and that ought to be the perspective from Delhi and Mumbai and other parts of India. There is a lot that we need to do to break through all of these bureaucratic barriers that tie us down, frankly. And if you see how much reinvention is happening in America to make government operations more efficient, maybe that kind of introspection can be good. I mean, think about all of the ways that we sort of take for granted our stagnant trade relationship. I'm impatient to break through that. Governments have that power. And so the idea that, you know, on the spin that you offered, I don't agree with it. I think that governments should take proactive steps to optimize their economies and ensure the efficiency and productivity of their economies by taking systemic reform steps that are good for the people and good for the government.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there, Atul. I appreciate you joining us. We'll hear more from you and others in 2 days from now when Prime Minister Modi is in Washington. But for now, thanks very much for joining me there, the President of USIBC.